Planet With is slowly but surely transforming into the epicness of Gurren Lagann, and I absolutely love it. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you're not watching Planet With, you're missing one of the best series of the year. This episode was downright epic and featured probably my favorite moment from the entire series. This entire episode really is a turning point for the show, as we finally get to see what would actually happen if the entire Earth was actually sealed by the Sealing faction. And at first I thought people were simply just going to lose their drive to live, their personality, their passion for everything. But no, it quite literally seals and freezes the entire planet and everyone on it. And the reason that we know that is all thanks to the character of Yosuke, who is basically the Sealing faction's last weapon, their last opportunity to try and seal the planet. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that because, of course, Soya doesn't want to do anything. He's bedridden, he doesn't care, he doesn't want to fight back. Now is the time to seal the planet. On top of that, we actually get some solid backstory for Yosuke, which also ties into Benica and her relationship with her previous officer. In fact, the episode actually opens up with Benica actually succumbing to the effects of the sealing machine. We get to see that she's now been implanted with pleasant memories. Now, her superior officer who was attacked and killed actually managed to survive, and she gets to be with him yet again. We also get to learn that her superior officer was actually the brother of Yosuke. That's why Yosuke is so obsessed with Benica. He feels for the fact that she lost someone that she cared about. That, and I have a feeling that Yosuke is actually in love with Benica himself, but doesn't quite want to admit it out loud. He's just happy to know that she finally has good memories again, but now that she's gone and he no longer has that connection to her anymore, he now has no choice but to work for the Sealing faction to seal away the Earth entirely. And he does so by going to the planet and transforming his regular mech into a giant version of itself, and actually manages to seal the world by stretching his arms across the entire planet like a giant ring. They actually extend out like a giant beam of light, and then suddenly, in a flash, in a snap, if you will, the entire planet is completely sealed away, sucking away all of its color and sound and everything else. Basically, the entire planet is in a time warp. What's interesting, however, is that Soya is actually the only one who is not affected by this. And he's confronted by the vision of his brother, who are actually the people of paradise, and they give him the ability to actually snap people out of the sealing. The way that this is done is actually kind of strange, where Soya is actually projected as a giant on the planet, and he speaks into a big microphone telling everyone that if they want to get out of this dream world and come back to reality, simply just raise your hand. And of course, everyone eventually does that. What I especially love about this scene is just the amount of weird, different people that we actually see who are starting to react to his words in this world. Some of them are funny, like this one dude who's in a bathtub filled with money, which I just think is really funny and kind of strange and out of nowhere. It's a really fantastic moment, but eventually he is able to undeal the sealing, which, according to Generalissimo and Shiraishi, is something that actually shouldn't be able to be done, but the people of paradise and the power of Soya's words actually managed to make this a possibility. This all leads to what is my favorite scene of this entire episode, where now that Soya is out of his funk, he is ready to fight again and help his friends. Even though his planet, his family, his friends are gone, there are still people here that he cares about, and he'll do everything in his power to protect him. As he says, he'll befriend who he wants to befriend. What I also love about this episode is not only do we get to see the return of Tourai, but we also see Miyu and Haru come together to fight back against this giant sheep mech, the one that Yosuke is using. But it's when Soya decides to come in and fight back that things get decidedly epic. This is the part where the episode just goes full Gurren Lagann, where Soya teams up with Sensei and Ginkgo, and they fly into the giant purple cat spaceship, which then transforms into a giant version of his mech, which is even more armored and more powerful. Basically, what we're about to get is a giant freaking mech battle. This was great. What I especially loved about it is that it's someone piloting a robot that's piloting another giant robot, hence the reference to Gurren Lagann. And this thing absolutely dominates Yosuke in battle, sending him flying with his brand new attack, which is an upgraded version of the Cat Hammer, the Terra Cat Hammer, which sends him flying and destroys him in one shot. And of course, he's saved by Benica. The scene is made doubly epic when Soya decides to declare war on the Ceiling faction, pointing directly to them in the sky. This is one of my favorite images from the entire series, and it also made me realize that if they can do that, Generalissimo can probably do the same thing with his mech as well, so I'm expecting them to be like a really big battle between these two characters. I have a feeling though that as this battle is going to begin, the dragon is going to return, and I think it's only a matter of time before the Ceiling and the Pacifist factions actually managed to start teaming up together. So what's the rundown on this episode of Planet With? I could make so many comparisons to Gurren Lagann of what they're actually doing with this anime series. I mean, I already saw a lot of them before, and a lot of that can actually even be seen in some of the actual mecha design itself, but there was a story arc in Gurren Lagann where the main character went through like a weird funk for a couple of episodes, and then eventually he came back to help his friends. That's basically what's happening here in this episode, but the way that it was actually done I thought was really fantastic, especially because it seemed like the Ceiling faction had actually won in this episode. They had completely sealed away the planet, and the way that they portrayed it was honestly kind of horrifying. I thought it would have been okay if maybe people would have just been implanted with pleasant memories, and they were, but to completely not give them any more free will really does show that the Ceiling faction really are just a group of invaders and very misguided. They might have good intentions, but again, what they're doing is not necessarily a good thing. I also love that there's some little subtle moments to show that even though they do seem to be rivals, there's still a lot of respect for these characters. Whenever Sensei actually returns along with Soya and Ginkgo, Generalissimo's tail is wagging all happily. He's kind of happy to see his old friend back, although he'd still like him out of his hair. It is worth mentioning that if the Nebula people are on the planet when it's sealed, they will get sealed away as well, so they have to be very careful with that. But this episode right here just completely sold me on the epicness and the overall just imagery. I think one of my favorite moments had to be the giant goat thing just like completely covering the earth with its giant stretched out arms. That was a really amazing visual right there. The episode itself was kind of cheesy, and I thought it was going to be super predictable by the end, but when he actually ended up combining with that giant robot and transforming at the end, that was sort of the moment that sold it for me. I loved this episode, and you guys definitely need to be checking out Planet With. I think it's one of the most underrated anime of the year, and again, this episode just exuded its extreme and awesome epicness. I do love that all of the characters are finally back to normal as well, including Benica, who, despite using the Ceiling device on herself, was actually also communicating with Soya and was able to come back to her true self as well. It's really, I think, going to be Soya teaming up with Grand Paladin to take down the Ceiling faction, but I really do think that the dragon is going to come in and they're going to be forced to actually have to team up together, and the Ceiling faction is going to learn there are some races that this doesn't have to happen to. In fact, we really shouldn't even be interfering with these people in their lives anymore. Who knows the potential that they could possibly have. It was a great episode. I'm giving this episode a 5 out of 5. You guys need to check it out. If any of you guys did watch this episode of Planet With, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below, and what you guys hope to see from the rest of the Planet With anime series. Thank you guys for watching this review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.